Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going deep into product design and development. You guys sent us a textbook, Product Design and Development, and a whole bunch of articles. Looks like you're really serious about getting this right.
Yeah, it's a dense topic, but super fascinating.
It is. So this textbook, it pretty much maps it all out from like the very first spark of an idea to, actually getting a product out there in the world.
And what I found really interesting is how much it emphasizes that blend. It's not just design, it's not just marketing, it's not just manufacturing, it's all these pieces working together.
Totally. And they actually use like real world examples. They've got syringes, jet engines, mountain bikes. It's all over the place.
Right. It gets down to the nitty-gritty, which is great.
Yeah, it's not just theory.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like the big question. What makes a product successful?
Okay, so obviously we're all thinking profit, right?
Yeah, that's the end goal.
But as the textbook points out, that's not always something you can measure immediately.
Right. It takes time.
So they break it down into 5 key dimensions.
Okay. What are they?
Development time and cost, so how long it takes and how much it costs to develop the product. Then there's the actual product cost, how well it performs, the development capabilities of your team, and of course, the quality of the product itself.
Okay, so it's not just about making money. It's about all these different factors coming together.
Exactly. And finding that balance, that's where the challenge comes in. Like imagine you're designing an airplane. You want it to be lightweight for fuel efficiency, but that might mean using more expensive materials.
Right. So there's always a trade-off.
Always. And understanding those trade-offs, that's crucial.
So who are the people behind all of this? I mean, who makes this stuff happen?
Well, the book focuses on 3 key functions: marketing, design, and manufacturing.
Okay, the dream team.
Right. And marketing is all about that connection to the customer.
So they're figuring out what people want, what people need.
Exactly. They're identifying opportunities, making sure the message gets out there.
Okay, so then you've got design. There are the creative ones.
Yeah. They're turning those needs into a tangible product, balancing the aesthetics and the function.
And of course, you need manufacturing to actually build the thing.
Right. None of it matters if you can't actually make it. Manufacturing takes those designs and figures out how to bring them to life, thinking about cost and efficiency.
But let's be honest, it's not always smooth sailing in product development.
Definitely not.
What are some of the roadblocks, the challenges?
Those trade-offs we talked about, they come up all the time.
Uh-huh.
And then just the fact that customer needs are always changing, the market is constantly shifting. It's like hitting a moving target.
So you got to be adaptable.
Exactly. And that's why choosing the right development process is so important.
Okay, so the book talks about different approaches, like different ways to develop a product.
Right. It's like having different tools for different jobs.
Okay, I like that.
So there's the generic or market pull approach. This is where you're starting with a need in the market.
So you see that people want a specific thing, and then you try to create it.
Exactly. Think about something like, I don't know, sporting goods.
Okay.
Or furniture. They're driven by a pretty clear customer need.
Makes sense. What else?
Then you have this technology push approach where you're starting with some cool new tech and then figuring out, okay, where does this fit in the market?
Oh, so it's like you have this amazing new invention. Now what do we do with it?
Exactly. This is where those scientific breakthroughs come in. Like someone invents a new fabric and then someone else goes, hey, we could make amazing athletic wear with this.
I see. So it's about finding the right application for the technology.
Right. And then we have platform products. This is where you create a core base and then you offer different variations. Like think about a printer. You have the base model and then you can add all these features.
Oh, like wireless printing or double-sided printing, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's like building a house and then giving people options to customize it.
That's a good analogy. What about if you need to move fast, is there an approach for that?
Yeah, there's quick build. This is all about rapid prototyping, testing things out quickly. It's common in fashion or electronics where trends change so fast.
Okay, so you're constantly iterating, making changes based on feedback.
Exactly. And finally, we have product service systems where the lines blur between the product and the service.
So something like Zipcar, where it's not just about the car itself, but the whole experience of renting it.
Right, or a restaurant. It's more than just the food, it's the whole ambiance, the service.
Okay, so many different approaches.
Yeah, it's about choosing the right one for the situation.
So before we get into all the different stages of development, let's go back to the very beginning. How do we even find these opportunities in the first place?
That's opportunity identification. And the book is pretty honest. They compare it to a tournament.
A tournament of ideas.
Yeah, like a battle royale.
Yeah.
You start with a ton of ideas, and then you got to sift through them, refine them until you find that golden nugget.
So where do these golden nuggets hide?
Well, there are internal and external sources. Internally, it's about leveraging your team's expertise, your company's strengths, maybe looking at existing products and thinking, how can we make this better?
Okay, so you're looking at what you already have and trying to innovate. What about externally?
Externally, you're paying attention to trends, listening to your customers, even keeping an eye on the competition.
So it's about being aware of what's happening in the market.
Exactly. And they highlight these lead users as a goldmine of insight.
Lead users, who are they?
These are the early adopters, the ones who are always pushing the boundaries.
So they're the ones trying out all the new gadgets, the new technology.
Exactly. They're often finding their own solutions to problems that the mainstream market hasn't even recognized yet.
Wow, so they're like ahead of the curve.
Yeah, they're the pioneers. And by understanding what they're doing, you can often find opportunities for products that nobody else has even thought of yet.
Okay, so we've struck gold. We found an amazing opportunity. What happens next?
That's where product planning comes in. We got to create a roadmap for our product portfolio.
A roadmap, like where are we going with this?
Exactly. What are we going to develop? When are we going to develop it? How does it all fit into our overall business strategy?
So it's like planning a road trip?
Yeah. You need to know your destination, map out your route, make sure you have enough gas in the tank.
But sometimes you hit detours, right?
Of course. Unexpected things happen. New technology pops up. A competitor releases a product that changes the game.
So you got to be flexible, but having a plan keeps you moving in the right direction.
Exactly. And the book also mentions technology road mapping.
Oh, what's that about?
It's about looking ahead at those technological advancements that could impact your products.
So you're not just planning for what you can do now, but what you might be able to do in the future.
Right. It's about staying ahead of the curve.
Makes sense.
And of course, you have to be realistic about your resources.
Ah, yes, the budget.
Yeah, the book calls this resource allocation, making sure you're not biting off more than you can chew.
Yeah, it's easy to get carried away with all those exciting ideas.
It is. But you got to prioritize, focus on what's most important.
Okay, so we have our opportunity, we have our plan, we have our resources. Now we need to really understand our customers.
Absolutely. And that means getting out of the building, talking to real people.
Not just sitting in a boardroom brainstorming.
No. The book emphasizes direct interaction. Go out and observe how customers use products, what are their pain points, what do they really value.
So it's like being a detective.
A bit. You're gathering clues. And they highlight 3 key methods: interviews, focus groups, and engaging those lead users we talked about.
Okay, so interviews are like one-on-one, really getting deep with a customer.
Exactly. You're getting that individual perspective.
And focus groups are more about like group dynamics, seeing how people react to ideas together.
Right. It can spark new ideas, too, when you have that group discussion.
And then the lead users, they're like your secret weapon, giving you those insights that you wouldn't get from the average customer.
Exactly. They're the ones pushing the boundaries, coming up with innovative solutions.
Okay, so we've gathered all this information about our customers. Now what? How do we turn these insights into something tangible?
That's where specifying product attributes comes in. You're taking those customer needs and translating them into measurable metrics.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say a customer says they want a product to be easy to use.
Okay, but what does that actually mean?
Right. You have to define it. Does it mean the buttons are big and easy to press? Does it mean the interface is simple?
Ah, so you're breaking down that vague concept into specific things that you can actually design and measure.
Exactly. And don't forget about the competition. You gotta know how your product stacks up against what's already out there.
So it's like scouting out the other players before a big game.
Exactly. You need to know their strengths, their weaknesses, where you can excel.
Okay, so we have our data, we know what we're aiming for, and we know who we're up against. Now it's time to start generating some ideas.
Yes, this is where the creativity really comes in. Brainstorming, exploring different approaches, coming up with those innovative solutions.
I love brainstorming sessions. It's amazing what can come out of those.
The book talks about functional decomposition. It's basically breaking down a complex problem into smaller chunks.
So instead of tackling the whole thing at once, you're focusing on specific aspects.
Exactly. And then you could think about, okay, how can we achieve this function in different ways?
And sometimes the best ideas come from unexpected places, right?
Absolutely. Look for inspiration everywhere, patents, experts from other fields, even unrelated industries.
So it's about being open to new ideas, new perspectives.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get a little wild in those brainstorming sessions. Suspend judgment, Let those crazy ideas flow freely.
No idea is a bad idea at this stage.
Exactly. You never know what might spark that brilliant solution.
Okay, but eventually we have to choose, right? We can't pursue every single idea.
That's right. That's concept selection. It's like holding auditions for a movie role. You've got a bunch of talented actors, but only one can get the part.
So how do we choose?
The book suggests decision matrices. Basically, you evaluate each concept against a set of criteria.
So you're creating a scorecard for your ideas.
Exactly. Things like cost, performance, feasibility, market appeal. These are all on your scorecard.
Now you're weighting them based on their importance.
Exactly. It brings objectivity to the process. You're making decisions based on data, not just gut feelings.
Makes sense. And sometimes the best solution isn't one idea or the other, but a combination of both, right?
Exactly. Be open to merging and improving those concepts.
Okay, so we've narrowed it down. We're feeling pretty good about our concept. But before we go all in, we need to get some feedback.
Yes. Concept testing. It's like a test drive before you buy a car.
You want to make sure it actually works.
Right. And you want feedback from the right people. People who represent your target market.
Not just your friends and family.
Exactly. You need unbiased opinions.
Okay, so we're showing our concept to potential customers, getting their feedback.
Right. And it's important to go beyond just words. Use visuals, prototypes, even simulations to really bring it to life.
So they can really visualize what the product would be like.
Exactly. You want to capture their imagination, and then you analyze that feedback, see what you've learned.
See if your brilliant idea actually resonates with people.
Exactly. It's a crucial step.
And if it doesn't resonate, it's not the end of the world.
Nope. It's all part of the process. You iterate, you refine, you come back stronger.
Okay, so we've validated our concept. We're feeling good. Now we need to think about the structure of this thing.
That's product architecture. Figuring out how all the pieces fit together.
Like designing the blueprint for a building.
Exactly. The book actually uses Lego blocks to illustrate this.
I like that.
Each function is like a Lego piece, and you can put them together in different ways. And one of the key considerations is modularity.
Modularity
Meaning those pieces are relatively independent. You can swap them out, modify them without affecting the whole system.
So it's about flexibility, being able to adapt to changes.
Exactly. But sometimes you need a more integrated design where everything is tightly interconnected.
So it's another one of those trade-offs.
It's always trade-offs. It's about finding that balance, making the right choices for your product goals.
Okay, so we have the architecture sorted out. Now it's time to make this thing look good.
That's industrial design. Bringing in the aesthetics, the user experience. It's about creating a product that's both beautiful and a joy to use.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not just about function. It's about how it makes people feel.
Exactly. How does it feel in your hand? How intuitive is it to use? Does it seamlessly integrate into your life?
It's like designing a comfortable chair that you never want to get out of.
Exactly. And paying attention to those details, the materials, the colors, the way everything flows together.
It's about creating an experience.
Exactly. And speaking of experiences, we can't forget about the environment.
Right. Sustainability is so important these days.
The book talks about design for environment, or DFE.
So it's about minimizing the environmental impact throughout the entire life cycle of the product.
Exactly. From the raw materials to how it's eventually disposed of.
So using recycled materials, reducing energy consumption during manufacturing, designing for easy recycling at the end of life.
All of that. And it's not just about being environmentally responsible. It can also benefit your bottom line.
How so?
Consumers are increasingly eco-conscious. A product with strong environmental credentials can be a major selling point.
So it's good for the planet and good for business.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
Okay, we've designed our product. We've considered the environment. Now we got to think about actually making this thing.
That's design for manufacturing and supply chain, or DFM.
DFM, okay. So it's about designing with production in mind.
Right. Making sure the product can be manufactured efficiently, cost-effectively.
So it's not just about the design itself, but how it will actually be made.
Exactly. It involves close collaboration between the designers and the manufacturing engineers.
Okay, so they're working together to find the best way to build this thing.
Exactly. And they're looking for ways to streamline the assembly process, reduce waste, minimize those hidden costs.
It's like a carefully choreographed dance.
Exactly. And it's not just about manufacturing, it's about the whole supply chain.
Right, all those different steps involved in getting the product from raw materials to the customer.
You got to think about where you're sourcing materials, how you're transporting them, how the finished product will reach the customer.
Okay, so it's a complex system.
It is. And then there's the make versus buy decision.
Make or buy.
Yeah. Do you manufacture the components yourself or outsource them to a supplier?
So it's about choosing your battles.
Right. Sometimes it's more strategic to outsource, even if you could technically do it yourself.
Like maybe the supplier has specialized expertise or can do it more cost-effectively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the challenge of managing a global supply chain.
Yeah, with all the tariffs and transportation costs and everything.
It's a lot to juggle, but getting it right can be a major competitive advantage.
Okay, so we've designed our product, we've figured out our supply chain. Now we can finally start building, right?
Almost. But before we go into full production, it's time for prototyping.
Prototyping, I love that stage. It's where you actually see your ideas come to life.
Right. And the book really stresses the importance of building prototypes early and often. The sooner you can find problems, the easier it is to fix them.
Yeah, it's like finding a crack in the foundation of your house before you build the whole thing.
Exactly. And there are different types of prototypes. You might have a focused prototype that zeroes in on a specific feature, or a comprehensive prototype that's closer to the final product.
So you can test different aspects.
Right. And then there are analytical prototypes, which use computer simulations to test performance virtually.
Well, that's cool. So you can see how it might behave without actually having to build it.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for identifying potential problems early on.
Okay, we've built our prototypes, we're ironing out the kinks. Now, how do we make sure our product can handle the real world?
That's where robust design comes in.
Robust design, meaning?
Meaning it can withstand those bumps, those drops, those unexpected uses.
So it's not just about working perfectly in the lab, it's about working in the real world where things aren't always perfect.
Exactly. And it involves using experiments and data analysis to find those sweet spots in your design, those settings that will make it perform consistently, even when things get a little rough.
So it's about building in that extra layer of resilience.
Precisely.
Okay, our product is robust, it's functional, it looks good. Now, how do we protect our brilliant idea?
That's where patents and intellectual property come in.
We've got to make sure nobody steals our idea and runs
Yeah,
with it.
exactly. It's about protecting your innovation.
So things like patents, trademarks, copyrights.
All of that. The book gives a really good overview of the patent process.
It's a complex world, but super important to understand.
It is, especially if you have something truly groundbreaking.
Okay, so we've patented our idea. We're feeling good. But wait, there's more. The book also talks about service design.
Right, and this is where things get really interesting. It's not just about the product itself, it's about designing the whole experience.
So, like, if we're selling a car, it's not just about the car itself, it's about the whole experience of buying and owning that car.
Exactly. Think about services like Zipcar, a restaurant, even healthcare.
So it's about those interactions, those touch points that make up the customer journey.
Exactly. And the book introduces this concept of a service blueprint. It's a visual representation of the entire service process.
So like a map of all the different steps involved.
Exactly. And it helps you to see those critical moments of truth, those interactions that can make or break the customer experience.
Like if you call customer service and they're rude or unhelpful, that can really ruin the whole experience.
Exactly. It's about understanding those touch points and making sure they're positive.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the creative side of things, but let's face it, none of it matters if the numbers don't add up.
You're right. We got to talk about money. Product development economics.
It can be a bit dry, but it's important.
It is. We need to make sure our product is not just cool, but also profitable.
And we talked about net present value, or NPV, as a key metric for evaluating that.
Right. NPV takes into account the time value of money.
The time value of money, meaning $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow.
Exactly. You could invest that dollar today and earn interest on it. So NPV helps us compare the value of our investment today with the potential returns in the future.
Okay, so it helps us decide if a project is financially viable.
Exactly. And then there's sensitivity analysis, which helps us understand the key assumptions in our financial projection.
Like, what if sales are lower than we expected?
Here, sensitivity analysis helps us explore those different scenarios and see how they impact the bottom line.
So it's like a stress test for our financial plan.
Exactly. And while the numbers are important, we can't forget about those qualitative factors too.
Like brand reputation, customer loyalty, the competitive landscape.
Exactly. Sometimes a product that might not have the best financial projections could still be a strategic win for your brand.
So it's not always about maximizing short-term profits. It's about making decisions that support your long-term goals.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're nearing the finish line of this product development marathon. Now we got to talk about project management.
Yes, this is about keeping all those moving parts organized, making sure everything stays on track.
It's like conducting an orchestra, making sure all the musicians are playing together.
A perfect analogy. And just like a conductor needs a score, a project manager needs a plan. The book talks about tools like Gantt charts and the design structure matrix.
Gantt charts, those are those visual timelines, right?
Exactly. They help you track progress.
Hmm.
And the design structure matrix is more complex. It helps you understand all the dependencies between different tasks.
So you can see how everything fits together, where the potential bottlenecks might be.
Exactly. And of course, every project has risks. Things like delays or budget overruns.
Okay.
The key is to be proactive, anticipate those risks, and have plans in place to deal with them.
So like having a backup plan.
Exactly. And communication is crucial. You got to keep everyone on the team informed, aligned, and motivated.
So regular meetings, clear documentation, open communication channels.
All of that. A well-functioning team is essential for success.
Wow, we've covered so much ground already. From brainstorming to patents to project management, it's amazing how much goes into bringing a product to market.
It really is a fascinating process, and we're just getting started.
I'm ready for more. Let's keep diving.
It is a fascinating process, and there's so much more to unpack.
I'm ready. Let's jump back in. We kind of skimmed over DFM earlier, but the book goes into detail about specific techniques like design for assembly or DFA.
Oh yeah, DFA, that's all about making the assembly process as smooth as possible.
Okay, so you're not just designing the parts. You're thinking about how they'll actually be put together on the assembly line.
Exactly. You're looking for potential bottlenecks, anything that can make assembly difficult or expensive, and you're designing to avoid those problems. A well-designed product, from a DFA perspective, can be assembled quickly and easily, with fewer mistakes and less rework.
That sounds like a huge cost saver.
Oh, absolutely. DFA can make a big difference in terms of labor costs and the overall quality of the product.
So it's a win-win.
Definitely.
Okay. And then there's that make versus buy decision we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
How do you actually decide which components to make in-house and which ones to outsource?
Right. That's a big one. The book lays out a framework for making those choices. It weighs factors like production volume, expertise, cost, and strategic importance.
So it's not just about whether you can make it yourself.
Nope. Sometimes it makes more sense to work with a supplier, even if you have the capability in-house.
Right, like if the supplier already has the specialized equipment or the expertise.
Exactly. Why start from scratch if you don't have to?
Makes sense.
And then, of course, there's the whole challenge of managing the supply chain.
All those different pieces, all those moving parts.
It can be a lot, especially in today's globalized world. But the book has some good advice on managing that complexity. Things like building strong relationships with suppliers, making sure you get quality components on time, and optimizing logistics to keep costs down.
So it's about finding reliable partners, not just the cheapest option.
Right. It's about the long game. You need suppliers you can trust.
Okay, now I want to circle back to service design. The book talks about this thing called a service blueprint.
Ah, yes, the service blueprint.
What is that exactly?
It's basically a visual map of the entire service process from the customer's perspective.
So it shows all the touch points, all the interactions between the customer and the service provider.
Exactly. It helps you to see the big picture, to understand the whole customer journey.
And it helps you to see those make or break moments, those interactions that can really make a difference in the customer's experience.
Right, like if you're calling customer service and you get put on hold for an hour, that's not a good moment of truth.
Exactly.
The service blueprint also helps you to understand those backstage processes, the things that happen behind the scenes to support those customer interactions.
So things like training your customer service reps, making sure your website is easy to use.
All of that. By analyzing the blueprint, you can find ways to improve those processes and create a better experience for the customer.
Okay, now let's talk money again. We got to make sure our product is not just a cool idea, but also a viable business.
Right, the numbers have to work.
And we talked about net present value, or NPV, as a key metric for that.
Yeah, NPV is a way to compare the cost of the investment today with the potential profits down the road, taking into account the fact that money today is worth more than money in the future.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get that.
It's like if you had a magic money machine that could turn $1 today into $2 tomorrow.
Sounds like a good machine.
Right. But what if someone tried to sell you that machine for $3?
Not worth it.
Exactly. You'd be losing money.
Mm.
That's what a negative NPV means. You're paying more for the investment than you're likely to get back.
Okay, that makes sense. So a positive NPV is what we're aiming for.
Right. That means the project is likely to be profitable.
And then there's sensitivity analysis, which helps
Mhm.
us understand those what-if scenarios.
Exactly. What if sales are lower than we projected? What if costs go up? Sensitivity analysis helps us explore those possibilities and see how they impact the MPV.
So it's like a stress test for our financial plan.
Exactly.
But the numbers aren't the whole story, right?
Right. We also need to consider those qualitative factors that are harder to measure, things like brand reputation and customer loyalty.
Because sometimes a product that might not have the best financial projections could still be a good move for the brand in the long run.
Exactly. It might build stronger relationships with customers, enhance the brand image.
So it's about taking a holistic view, not just focusing on the bottom line.
Right.
Okay, and finally, we got to talk about project management because all these moving pieces need to be carefully coordinated.
Absolutely. Project management is all about keeping everything on track, making sure everyone is working together effectively.
It's like conducting an orchestra, making sure all the instruments are in harmony.
Exactly. And the book talks about tools like Gantt charts and the design structure matrix to help with that.
We talked about Gantt charts earlier, those visual timelines that show all the tasks and deadlines.
Right. And the design structure matrix is a way to visualize the relationships between different tasks, to see where the dependencies are and where potential bottlenecks might arise.
So it helps you to anticipate problems and optimize the workflow.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of risk management, because no project is ever completely smooth sailing.
Oh, what kind of risks are we talking about?
Things like scope creep, where the project keeps expanding beyond its original goals, or unexpected delays, or budget overruns.
Yeah, those are not fun.
The key is to be proactive, to identify potential risks early on and have plans in place to mitigate them.
So it's like having a backup generator for when the power goes out.
Exactly.
And communication is key, right?
Absolutely. You have to keep everyone on the team informed and engaged.
Regular meetings, clear documentation, open communication channels.
All of that. A well-functioning team is essential for success in product development.
Okay, so we've got a product designed, we've figured out the manufacturing and the supply chain, we've got a solid plan in place. What's next? Is it launch time?
We're getting close, but first, we need to talk about testing.
Oh yeah, testing, got to make sure this thing actually works.
Exactly. Testing is crucial. It's like putting your product through boot camp, making sure it can handle the real world.
Testing goes beyond just making sure it turns on and off, right?
Oh yeah, it's much more than that. Depending on the product, testing can involve all sorts of things, from lab experiments to field trials.
So you might drop it, freeze it, dunk it in water, all kinds of torture tests.
Exactly. You want to push it to its limits, see what it can handle,
Yeah.
and you want to test it with real users, observe how they interact with it, and get their feedback.
So it's about finding those weaknesses, those areas where it might break down before it gets out into the market.
Right. And it's also about making sure that it's robust, that it can withstand those everyday bumps and bruises.
We talked about robust design earlier,
Yeah,
but testing is where you actually put those design choices to the test.
exactly. You want to make sure that those ideas that looked good on paper actually translate into a durable, reliable product.
Okay, so we've tested it, we've made sure it's tough. Now what? Time for packaging.
Packaging. That's another important piece of the puzzle.
I never really thought about packaging as part of the product development process.
It often gets overlooked, but it's crucial. Packaging is the first thing a customer sees, and it can really influence their perception of the product.
It's like gift wrapping. A beautifully wrapped gift just feels more special.
Exactly. And good packaging serves multiple purposes. It protects the product during shipping, it communicates information to the customer, and it can even enhance the perceived value of the product.
So it's not just about throwing it in a box.
Nope, it's about creating a cohesive brand experience.
And sustainability is a factor here too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Consumers are more environmentally conscious than ever, and they're looking for brands that are making sustainable choices.
So using recycled materials, minimizing waste, designing for recyclability.
All of that.
Okay, so we've got our product packaged and ready to go. Now, how do we actually get it to the customers?
Logistics, that's a whole other world.
The art of getting things from point A to point B.
Exactly. And it's more complex than it sounds. It involves managing transportation, warehousing, distribution, all while keeping costs down and making sure everything arrives on time and in good condition.
Sounds like a logistical dance.
It is. And technology is playing a bigger and bigger role in logistics. Things like GPS tracking and warehouse automation are making the whole process more efficient.
So you can track your product every step of the way, from the factory to the customer's doorstep.
Exactly. It's all about visibility and control.
Okay, our product is designed, tested, packaged, and ready to ship. We've figured out the logistics. Now it's time for the big moment, the product launch.
The grand finale. All that hard work has led to this. But launching a product is not as simple as just throwing a party and hoping for the best. You need a solid plan.
A product launch plan.
Right. You need a strategy that covers everything from marketing and PR to sales and customer support.
So you're creating buzz, getting people excited about the
Yeah.
product.
Exactly. You want to generate positive media coverage, make sure customers have a great experience with the product right from the start.
It's all about making a strong first impression.
Right. And you need to be flexible too. The market can be unpredictable, so you might need to adjust your plan along the way.
So it's not just about crossing the finish line. It's about running the race strategically.
Exactly. And even after the launch, the work isn't over.
Really. What else is there?
The post-launch phase is all about monitoring how the product is performing, gathering feedback from customers, and making improvements.
So it's a continuous process. You're always trying to make the product better.
Right. It's like tending a garden. You have to nurture it, keep the weeds out, make sure it's thriving.
Okay, and you also have to be thinking about the product's life cycle, right? Technology changes so fast, consumer needs are always evolving.
Exactly. You have to be ready to adapt to keep your product relevant and competitive.
So it's a never-ending cycle of improvement and innovation.
It is. But all of this planning and strategizing, it's really just a starting point. There's something else that can take product development to the next level.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the secret ingredient?
Data.
Data. I mean, we've talked about gathering customer data and analyzing financial projections, but how does data play a role in all these other aspects of product development?
That's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive, the power of data analytics to transform every stage of the product development journey.
Okay, so data analytics. This is where things get really interesting. It's like data is everywhere these days, transforming everything.
It really is. We've already talked about how data informs decisions like pricing and forecasting, but it goes way beyond that. Think of data analytics as like a superpower. It can help you see patterns you wouldn't notice otherwise, predict future trends, and really get inside your customers' heads.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. But how do we actually use data to, build better products?
Well, for starters, think about understanding your customers. Imagine being able to analyze tons of data, everything from what they buy to what they say online, to really figure out their needs and pain points.
So instead of just relying on focus groups or surveys, we can tap into this huge pool of data to get a much clearer picture of what customers really want.
Exactly. And not just what they want now, but what they'll want in the future. By looking at historical data, market trends, even social media conversations, you can start to see those emerging patterns, those signals that tell you where the market is heading.
So it's like having a crystal ball.
Kind of, but it's not magic, it's data. And data can also help you optimize the whole design and development process. Imagine being able to track all these metrics like how long it takes to develop a feature or how many defects you find, and using that data to make the process more efficient.
So it's about making data-driven decisions, not just relying on gut feelings.
Exactly. It's like having a health checkup for your product development process so you can identify those areas that need improvement.
And it's not just about internal processes, right? You can use data to collaborate more effectively with your suppliers, too.
Absolutely. By sharing data like demand forecasts or inventory levels, you can improve coordination, reduce lead times, and make sure you're getting those quality components when you need them.
So it's about creating a more connected and efficient supply chain.
Exactly. And once your product is out there in the world, data can help you track its performance, gather feedback, and make improvements.
So it's not just about launching and forgetting about it. You're constantly learning and evolving based on the data you're collecting.
Right. It's like having a constant stream of feedback that you can use to make the product better and better over time.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of product design and development. I feel like we've covered so much ground, from brainstorming ideas to managing complex projects to leveraging the power of data.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. Hopefully you're feeling inspired to create amazing products.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, we encourage you to embrace the power of data. It's not just for tech companies. It's a tool that anyone can use to create better products and build stronger businesses.
Data is knowledge, and knowledge is power.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon to explore another fascinating topic. Until then, happy innovating.